Hello and welcome to our video today. My name is Jason of Kageko & Associates. In our training today, we will have a case study on how iTax download files are made. I believe you have interacted with these files when filing your taxes. In the process, we will have the benefit of running the following: data validation, formatting and report presentation, naming of cell ranges, recording and learning of macros, and then cell protection, and many other risks. So let's see how a sample iTax file looks like. So what I've done here, I have attached a tax return for tax on rental income on my Gmail so that I can be able to open it on Google. And this is how you do it. Once you have the file attached on your email, then you click on the file. Once you click on it, it will give you various options. And the options I'm interested here is open with Google Sheets. Click on it. Once you click on it, it opens on Google Sheet. So once your file has opened on Google Sheet, the sheet that we are interested in is the basic information sheet, because once you are able to understand how the basic information sheet is made, then the rest of the iTax file becomes very easy to understand. So what we are going to do here, and that is the reason as to why we have opened this file, is to copy this information just to save some time for us instead of having to type everything from the word go. So what I'll do, I'll click on the first cell there, then holding my shift key down, I'll move to the right, then down up to where my area of interest. Then Ctrl C to copy on where I want to put my data, and then Ctrl V. So I have my file copied here, but unfortunately it has not copied the way I wanted. So I just format it. So I'll go to home and wrap text, and then I move the boundaries. Move the boundaries until all the information is revealed. Then I'll make sure that this also is reviewed nicely, and then I'll delete this information which was carried in the background of the form. The first thing that we are going to run is data validation. Data validation tells Excel what kind of data can be entered in a range or in a particular cell. And in this particular cell, we have personal identification number, which is the PIN. So we know that a PIN carries 11 characters. So whatever information is going to be entered here has to be 11 characters. G. So to do data validation, you go to the data menu and then data validation. Click on it. So the first thing, you need to give instructions to the person who is entering data. And the title here is alphanumeric. Whatever is going to be entered there is alphanumeric. And then instructions for the person entering data. Enter your PIN. And then now we can go and do the settings. So here we are looking at the text length. Validation using text length. We know a PIN carries 11 digits. So the text length of a PIN will be equal to 11 digits. So I put 11 there. And then lastly, we put an error message. This is the message that a person will see whenever they make an error. Input a valid PIN and click OK. So here we can come and put a sample PIN A123456789G, and as you can see, the PIN has been accepted. Also, you can be able to see that the message, also the input message, can be displayed. If you make a mistake and put an incomplete PIN, this is what will happen. the error message will be displayed, input a valid pin, and you have to write a valid pin for it to be accepted. The next area that we are going to validate is the type of returns. We have two types of returns. We have original and amended return. So the type of data validation we are going to do here is validation using a list. And therefore, the first thing that you're supposed to do is to type all the options that are available to be selected by the person who is inputting data. So the first option will be original. Then the second option is amended. So then, after you do that, you highlight the cell that you want to validate, go to data validation, and then here select that you are validating using a list. Then select the source of that list, which is the cells that have the options that you want to use. Click enter, then put an input message. The input message may be select one option, then you click OK. And therefore, when you go there, you'll be able to see the two options, original and amended, and you can select any of those. The other validation that we are going to do is for the return period from. Here there is no a lot of validation because we just need a particular date. So we go to data validation, and then settings. The value that needs to go there is date, and this date should be greater than. Now the first date in Excel is 1st of January 1900. So we can say this particular date that we put there equals, let's use custom. We'll put a formula here that says equals whatever value that we put here would be greater than 1. Why am I doing that? Now, for you to use custom data validation, you have to use a formula whose result will be either true or false. And here, this formula that I have put means that whatever date that we put there has to be greater than 1st of January 1900. You can do any data validation around the date, but for this particular one, I'll just make sure that I do that the date must be greater than 1st of January 1900, and then you click OK. But the most important of all will be this date. Now, we have a formula called EO month equals EO month. EO month literally means end of month. So this function gives you the end of a particular month given a start date. So here what we are looking at is a particular start date, which will be this date. And then we make sure that the date that is entered at the end there is the date that ends, is the last date of that particular month. So instead of putting a 1 will take us to the end of the next month. We want the end of the particular month, so we put a 0 there. So we need to format that as a date, Control Shift hash, so 31st January 1900. So now, if for example we put a date like, let's format this first of all, let's put this particular format there. So we just go to Format Painter, and then using the format painter, then we can format all these like that, so that they appear a bit nicely presented. So let me format again, highlight all that area, and you go to home, and I want it to be centered, and then you can increase the font a bit. We also need to format this as a date field, and therefore we'll go here and say home, go to home, and then go to more number formats, then hint that we are dealing with date, and then custom. So once we do that, we select the data format that almost fits what we are looking at, and here we are going to start with DD, and then MM, and then year. What it means is that we are going to have date with 2 digits and months and years. So then you click OK. You can copy that format and bring it down here using the format painter, and then you can write any date that you want to write there. So I write 01 of the current year 2019, then enter. That date has been accepted. So now here the particular date that we put here has to be a date that is equal to 31st of January 2019, and therefore we need to validate that field in a way that that date fits that particular formatting. So we go to data validation. So we are validating that field by custom validation. You use a formula. So remember, we had a formula that said that this cell needs to be equal to EO month, opening brackets, the start date is this particular date, and then comma 0, and then we close the brackets, and then click OK. So whatever date you write here has to be the end of the particular month. So let's try 31st. Sorry, my date formatting starts with the date, the month. So I start with 01/31/2019, then enter. That date is accepted. Let's try something like maybe 28th of January 2019, and you can see that there is an error message that has been written there. If we had put the error message, it would have been displayed there, but because of time, I'm not going to put the error message. So those are the validations, and in all the iTax files, from the detail sheets to tax computation sheet, there is a lot of data validation, and that is the most important thing. Now, going further, there's something else that we need to do, and this is creating a macro that will be able to move us from one sheet to another. So the first thing that we're going to do is to create a new sheet, and this sheet we need to name it, so we can manually type a_basic_info. Then we go here. This is called B tenants details. B_tenant_details. So now once we are there, what we need to do is create a macro that once we click a button, it takes us to the next sheet. A macro automates the repetitive things that we do in Excel, and therefore we are going to create a macro that will enable us move from this sheet, the basic information sheet, to the tenant detail. So this is how you create a macro. You go to the developer tab and click on record macro. Give your macro a name. I'm not going to change that for now. Give a description of what the macro does. Moves to next sheet, and then you click. Once that is done, then the macro, this macro is recording notification, shows there, and then now it is your time to record your macro. Whatever you do here will be recorded. So we just want to do a simple thing, to click on the next sheet, because that is what our macro will be doing. And then we go back to our developer and then stop recording. Now we already have a macro. The next thing that we need to do is to draw a button. There are two ways of drawing a button, but in this particular training, I just show you one. So you go to the insert menu, and then what you are inserting is a shape, and I should choose this particular shape. So you draw your shape wherever you want it. Let's look like it. Then so format it like that, and then you type. This will give us next to take us to the next tab. Then we can center this information and then increase the font a bit. Yeah. So we already have that, but the next thing that we need to do is to assign a macro. This is how we are going to do it. You right click on the box and then assign macro. And then we have our macro, macro 3, and then you click OK. Click outside that box, and then now your macro has been assigned to that particular button, and therefore now you can use that button to run your macro. Click on it and it takes you to the next. The other item I would want you to have run is naming of cell registers. Remember, when we were writing the formula here to validate this particular cell, we used the cell references. We used cell C5. But there is another way that we can use a name instead of a cell reference. And that way is naming of cell registers. So for example, we can name this cell as cell. We can copy this information here. Yeah, we can copy all that, Ctrl C. And then we select the cell that we want to name. Once you select the cell you want to name, then write the name that you want to give. One rule of naming of cells or registers: the name that you give should not have special characters, neither spaces. So I've removed the spaces and I have capitalized each word so that it's readable. You can use a hyphen or an underscore to separate the words, and then enter. Now, instead of using, as you can see, every time I select that cell, then the name of that cell as I have given it is displayed in the name box. So I can use that name in the formula. For example, remember we used cell reference C5 to validate here. So now, instead of using C5, I can use that name that I have given to that particular cell, return period 2. And I can copy that and then go to data validation where that value has been used, and I can paste that name, Ctrl V, and then enter. and that formula will work. So that is using of our names instead of cell reference. The last item I would want to cover is to make sure that some of the areas in this sheet or particular workbook are not editable, and that is called cell protection. So for you to do cell protection, this is how you go about it. You select the cells that you wouldn't want somebody to work on, or the other way around. So in this option, I'm going to use the option whereby you select the cells that you want to be edited. So I select the areas that you can be able to edit, and then go to home, then formatting, and then here we select protection. These cells are not locked, therefore I unclick the locked, and then after I do that, I go back to review. I go to review and then protect. I will be required to put a password, and this password will be used to unlock those cells. So I just put 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll be able to allow the person to select a locked cell and select unlocked cells. So if I don't want to allow a person to select unlocked cell, I just remove, I just untick. But now I want a person to be able to select the unlocked cell and click OK. And then 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then click enter. Now, if I want to edit any information outside the area that I had indicated as editable, then it will know. As you can see, that one I can be able to edit. But when you come here and you try to do something, then an error message is given that you're not able to do that. Great. With that, we come to the end of this video. If you like our video, you can subscribe to our channel, that is Kageko Associates, and follow us in our channels, either on Facebook, WhatsApp, or YouTube. Thank you so much. May God bless you. Bye bye.